Hello friends, if you're watching this, you probably like Volkswagen Touaregs. And well, luckily so do I. And at this moment I own 3 of them. It was actually 4 approximately 2 to 3 weeks ago, but I got rid of my parts car. And speaking of parts car, just a quick recap for those who haven't been following my channel. What do you see here up on the left is my personal Volkswagen Touareg. Well, it's not really personal, it's registered to my business, my car dealership. And it's supposed to be my hauler. As you can see, it's not really doing any hauling right now. It had a pretty much blown motor. It was still sort of running and driving, but it was suffering from some major oil pressure issues. And I ended up picking up a V8 Touareg that was pretty beat up from one of my subscribers. It had a good motor, so we're currently swapping that in, but we were running into some issues with a broken bolt in the frame, drive shaft, and I still have to weld my flex pipes before the engine goes in. But once I got that motor out of the parts car, I still had a full car with decent body. So I needed to empty out the room. I took all the body parts I needed off of that car, and I bought 2 more Touaregs from Copart that were crashed. This is one of them, and the one you saw outside is the second one. There's a little bit more information about this that I've already discussed in one of my other videos. If you're interested, check that out. Yeah, now we're down to 3, and we should have everything we need to fix them, except that this one keeps leaking some sort of fluid. I thought it leaked everything it could have leaked. It sat outside for 2 weeks. The reason why it sat outside for 2 weeks is because, let me show you. Yeah. So every time we try to start it, it almost immediately died. And I had just now, like 10 minutes ago, realized why. I honestly considered the fact that we might have a timing chain issue. So, because these 3.6 VR6 engines are sort of known for having a timing chain that, oh, looks like we sprayed some sort of fluid out here. That wasn't here before. Yeah, we're gonna have to look into that. Anyway, sometimes they can last up to like 200,000 miles on the stock chain, but sometimes not. Depends on how well maintained the car was. So when I read the codes, it actually had something, I think there was something timing related in the codes stored, which is pretty common because the car had a very dead battery and, you know, it sat in a Copart lot for a long time. And then I pushed it into the shop and realized something that actually made me pretty excited. So I took a look around the engine bay. Everything looks more or less okay. Yes, we have a leak here, which I think is power steering. It looks like it's coming from this cooler right here. But that wouldn't keep us from starting. And yeah, as you can see, we sprayed a bunch of stuff which probably came from here. But then I found something I was very happy to see. Look at that. That's our throttle body, and this is our intake, post-MAF, completely disconnected. So the car is getting no air. Well, it's getting air, but not the amount of air that it's supposed to get. And well, yeah, turns out this was actually very simple, and the only reason why it's not running is the fact that that's unplugged. So I'm gonna throw that in, and we're going to fix our power steering leak. Luckily, I took off the entire front end from my parts car. You can see it right there. And it actually has the power steering fluid cooler right there as well. And as you can see, we have a bumper also off of the parts car. This grill is trashed. I did not have the grill, but I bought one of those cheap eBay ones without a badge somewhere in this pile of parts. We're going to get back to it in just a little while, but this car here was actually run and drive from Copart, just like that one was supposed to be. And it was crashed from the rear. It had a pretty major impact right here. I already swapped the bumper, so it does need to get a rebuild title for it. We're planning to do that hopefully this upcoming week. But it runs and drives pretty good. It does have a check engine light, something for the brake booster activation. I don't know, I tried looking into it, but haven't found anything too useful, so we're gonna still figure that out. But there's one more damaged part here, and that is this hatch. Luckily, we also have the hatch from the parts car, you guessed it. And we're gonna try and swap that today, which is gonna be really hard by myself. I might have to call one of my friends to come by or something. We're gonna see. But now that I know what's wrong with the Touareg inside, I think I'm just gonna focus on that because it's a little more beat up. Like, I could drive this around with this like that for quite a while. Unfortunately, there is one thing that I don't have to finish rebuilding this car, and that is headlights. Yeah, we do have a broken radiator support. That just tells you how much I actually looked into this car. I haven't, because it wasn't starting, so I kind of focused on the other one outside and figured I'd get to this later. But yeah, our radiator support seems to be pretty trashed, and I think I am just gonna swap the whole front end. So the only issue we really have here is the power steering cooler. So I wonder if I can just swap this as well as the radiator support and leave everything else behind it. So all we have to do is take off these two hose clamps and slide the hoses off. Something we got really lucky with is this airbag or crash detection sensor. If this got damaged right here, airbags would have blown, which would make this a lot more expensive. And the interior is in relatively decent shape, apart from the fact that the previous owner decided to rip out the radio. And what's funny about that is the fact that he completely ripped it out, cut the wiring, and decided to keep it because he had an aftermarket head unit in here. I guess either his insurance or Copart had reached out to him and told him that he needs to put that back in, or at least put in the stock unit. So he ended up having to send this back. What really sucks is that the connections were cut because I guess he was too lazy to unplug it or something. I don't know. And that's gonna make this a pretty painful process for me to fix, but at least we have something to put in here. I guess I'm not too upset about it. Pull this headlight out, which might be a pain because this here is the mechanism for pulling the headlight out. And I don't know if I can release it without it. We'll worry about the headlight later. Let's just take off whatever bolts we see. There we go. In all honesty, the damages look pretty insignificant. There is a slight dent here on the condenser, and it's also very, very dirty. This car is gonna need a major wash. I mean, I don't even know how all this grease would get in here in the condenser. Potentially this cooler has been leaking for a long time, and that's how that happened. There we go. Look at that, this thing's pristine. So this power steering cooler came off of a V8. And as it turns out, there's a very slight difference between the two. As you can see on this one, when it's all mounted, the lines, one of the lines goes up and back at like a 45-degree angle, and this one goes straight back horizontally. Something I didn't notice right away is that the V8 ones, they both kind of just go straight up. But I was able to bend this guy back a little bit, and that was enough to slide the hose on without too many issues or fitment problems. As long as this stays away from the serpentine belt, we're gonna be perfectly fine. I'm not worried about it. So now that I'm not gonna have a whole bunch of power steering fluid leak all over my floors when I try and start this, I'm gonna hook up the intake that somehow decided to come off during the accident. So I did find this a little interesting because the Copart listing for this car did say that it was a run and drive car, and with this unhooked, I mean, you saw it, the car just immediately dies after starting. So there's no way that Copart would have been able to get it to run and drive like this, and I doubt that this got unplugged after they listed it. So somebody must be lying. Anyway, now that this is all hooked up, I think this car should be run and drive. Well, drive not as much without the headlights and the radiator being unsecured, but all I have to do is just fill up the power steering fluid, start it, and we're gonna see what happens. It would also suck if I just heard it dripping out somewhere. So it's not really gonna be able to bleed itself very well without me having the car started and turning the steering wheel myself. So we're gonna do that. Come on, buddy. Oh, calm down, calm down. Okay, we got a clean windshield now, apart from all the lettering from Copart. This is very good news. Hopefully the power steering fluid pump isn't going to struggle too much. Just got to keep this thing topped off as the fluid level comes down. Looks like we might have a slight issue with our serpentine belt tensioner. However, it's also possible that it's the power steering fluid pump having a hard time spinning due to the fluid being missing and having having air pockets in the system. So I'm gonna turn the wheels left and right, lock to lock. That's gonna make the fluid level go down, and hopefully get rid of all the air. So yeah, as you can see, as you can hear, the power steering pump is struggling. It's making all kinds of noises. Hopefully we can get rid of that by letting the fluid go through. Luckily for me, the engine seems to run very well. I don't hear any chain rattles or anything. We're going to have to figure out what we have to do with the power steering pump. If it keeps making this noise and I can't get rid of it, then I might just have to replace it. But obviously we're going to put the body back together, and theoretically this car should be good to go. And we do have some lights on dash, such as traction control, airbag, and one of the lamps apparently might be, oh well, yeah, the headlights are missing, so it's gonna throw us the warning for that here. So we got traction control and airbag light. Airbag light, crash sensors are disconnected, so potentially that's all it is. There's still a decent chance that we might have some other airbag faults. That is pretty common on these models and older German cars in general. Something I remember seeing on this car is a transmission limp mode. So when Copart took pictures of this and they had the car on, the transmission was in limp mode, meaning that all of the BRNDS lights for all the gears that you have available, they were all lit up. So there could be a lot of reasons for that. It could just be an electrical fault due to the car having a dead battery. It could be grounds under the carpet that sometimes get wet and corroded, and a relatively common problem, or it could actually be a transmission issue. Luckily, we still have the transmission off of our V8, which is in good shape, and I believe they're compatible. Looks like it also has some sort of an aftermarket anti-theft system, which I don't think it works. Oh, okay. I actually think this car has a remote start. Let's just make sure that that's actually what it is. Pretty cool. Now, can I turn it off with this? Look at that. I don't think I've ever owned a car that had remote start, so I'm pretty excited about this. Can anybody tell me what this is? The more I look at it, the more I get confused. So it like screws in. It looks like it has a tiny storage compartment in there. And if you do this, a little compartment pops up. I have no idea what this is. Can somebody please educate me? That's the only thing I can think of that this is used for: storing something you would snort, like medicine, and then you like put the medicine in here and snort it. Am I right? I don't know. This is just a wild guess. As it turns out, putting the hatch on is even harder than taking it off. Luckily, my friend Adam here showed up and helped out a ton. It was physically impossible for me to do this by myself. I don't think I would have gotten it no matter how much I tried. This thing is incredibly heavy, and it's supposed to go in under this very specific angle, and it seems that you would want to get the passenger side in first before doing the driver's side. And there's just a lot of little things that you wouldn't really expect that keep this from happening. But luckily, in the end, we did it.
Oh, there's it.
But our issues do not end there. I had a pretty hard time getting the struts in, the struts that hold the hatch up, as well as the second set of struts on the inside which hold up the window. The struts that hold up the hatch were really hard to pop back on without disconnecting the other side. To disconnect the other side, I had to partially drop the headliner and reach in there to disconnect them from that side. And once that side is free, you can wiggle this one on and then pop the other side back on. And now I just have to get all this wiring figured out. So this hatch that came off of the parts car, I disconnected the connectors under a headliner because I could just rip that headliner off. The car was getting scrapped, so it didn't matter. However, this car came with a backup camera, while this hatch came off of a car without the backup camera. So regardless, we would have to retain the wiring for the backup camera that came with this car and the original hatch, which is why all of the wiring was pulled out of the hatch, the old one, and is now hanging right here. Pull out the wiring from this hatch and then replace it with this stuff that's currently attached to the car. And that's gonna be hard because it needs to be fed through a lot of tiny openings. This car needs to be ready for the rebuild title inspection within 2 days. And unfortunately, I'm not gonna have time to work on it tomorrow. Basically, I need to finish this today in order to make it to the inspection. And the car needs to be at 100% when I get there. It's starting to get really chilly now, so I think I'm gonna try and we're gonna see if this thing can fit in here, which is highly doubtful. This is the first time I've seen this car in the rain, or I've used this car in the rain, and clearly we have a major, very major water leak. I don't know if you guys can see that, which is very, very bad. This is like absolutely terrible timing. And also a terrible location for water leaks. At the moment, we just need to put our hatch together. Sorry I'm not mic'd up. The sound is probably gonna be a little worse, but we're not done. And I am way too tired. And my back is in pain from reaching up this whole time. Plus the Niagara Falls inside the car kind of killed my spirit. So like I mentioned, tomorrow I'm not gonna have time to do this. And the day after is the inspection. The inspection is at 11 o'clock. So I will have some time in the morning to maybe get this done. And if I don't, and on that terrible disappointment, I think it's time to end this video. Please subscribe if you wanna see if I manage to get this thing to the inspection. Have a good one.